Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Stevens Sports Sunday. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hopefully, you are having a splendid Sunday afternoon. Um, just got back from calling some Utah softball. It was a pleasure. Was on the microphone with Brian Priest pretty much all weekend long. Covered a doubleheader on Saturday, and then had a game this morning on Sunday. So it's been a busy weekend for me, but um, I just wanted to take this opportunity to come back on. Leif had a great solo episode earlier this week. Our apologies for getting all up invested in March Madness last week. There's some things that I want to get to in this episode, and it's going to be a little bit different than the ones that I usually do. I'm not going to take you really on a whip around of what's happening in the sports world. I believe the biggest sports news, the biggest sporting event is happening is March Madness, and Leif and I are giving pretty extensive coverage of what's happening there. There's a couple things logistically that I wanted to talk about. They're not going to be an easy conversation to have, but I think they're things that need to be brought up and are not being talked about enough in the world of sports. First things first, before we get into those fun conversations, let's do a quick Utah recap. Utah lost all 4 softball games this weekend to Stanford. Stanford looked really good. Their pitching was tremendous. They outscored Utah by a total of 26-5 over the 4 games. Tough weekend series, but the softball team will look to bounce back next weekend against Arizona State. The women's volleyball team got a big win this morning against Washington State. Utah came in ranked 12. Washington State was ranked 13. Utah beat them in straight sets 3-0. So a big win there as well. The University of Utah Red Rocks became Pac-12 champions postseason play. That was a few weeks ago, but has not been reported on here. So once again, just congratulations to the Red Rocks, following up on a tremendous season that they had last year, cut short due to COVID-19. We're able to win the regular season outright last year, did it again this year, and then won in postseason play. Another trophy to celebrate for Mark Harlan. Congratulations. In other news, the Utah basketball head coaching vacancy has been filled after the U fired head coach Larry Kristoviak after multiple years of service. Craig Smith, head coach from Utah State, will be filling in as the new man under taking over to lead the run-in Utes as they look to better on some of the recent play that they've been having over the last few years. They've had talented rosters, but just unable to really maximize the potential, in my opinion. Unfortunate to hear the news about Larry Kay. He got a lot of flack for some of his performances, and I'm not necessarily all of that was 1,000% justified. That's neither here nor there. Craig Smith comes down from Utah State, 2 NCAA appearances in 3 years as head coach there in Logan. He looks to bring that winning mantra to Salt Lake City, where he'll take over a program that has a lot of talent, but one of those pieces has entered the transfer portal in Timmy Allen. Timmy Allen was a very talented sophomore, and he's one of those guys that really was going to be a building block for a long time in that Utah lineup. He entered the transfer portal. He has the opportunity to come back now about the head coaching news, but my guess is that Timmy Allen will be looking elsewhere to play basketball next season. So that's all I've got for the Utah sports news. There's 2 main things that I want to get to today, and this is going to take a little bit of a different spin, as I mentioned. The first thing is that after Ohio State was upset by Oral Roberts, the 15 seed in the NCAA tournament, EJ Lidell, one of the star forwards for Ohio State, was getting a lot of messages from a lot of different so-called fans, hate speech in his Instagram DMs. He tweeted them out after the game, and the tweet that he put out was quoted, "Honestly, what did I do to deserve this? ? I'm human." I won't put in too much of the details, but there's some messages that had the N-word, had calling him very bad slurs. Yo, where you from? I'll pull up on you immediately. some other profanity after that, multiple things of just I hope you die, I really do, was one of the ones that was sent to him as well. All of this he made public via Twitter, and this got a very warm welcome from the Ohio State faithful. But this is a real problem, and this is something that I really want to get to. EJ Lidell was shooting 1-and-1 free throws for a chance to tie and potentially win the game for Ohio State. He missed the front end, and Oral Roberts went on to win the game and pull off one of the more dramatic upsets in March Madness thus far this season. And so, yes, obviously, I have a pretty strong stance on this. I think hate speech is a absolute, like, there's nothing that you could do to convince me that this type of speech is in any way being a fan of your program. I think a lot of people came out in support of Ohio State fans, a lot of people from Ryan Day, the head football coach, to a couple members of the football team. And the support that EJ got from the Ohio State community after he made this public was tremendous. Turner Network Cable did a great job on the March Madness coverage of in between games. They gave him a nice little tribute. Ernie Johnson seemed to be pretty fed up with it as well. And this is a real problem. Social media and the platform that people have to kind of hide behind a keyboard and say whatever they feel is not okay. And this is something that is we've been ripped through as by a pandemic for the last few years, and health wise, but this is something that just this pure hatred that can live inside someone, and to send to another person, another human being, that I hope you die, literally. It's hard to put into words, and I've been trying to think of the right words to say on here for the last 2 weeks. And all I know is this hate speech on Twitter, on Instagram, on social media platforms needs to be eradicated from daily life. It is a enormous problem. Leif got an Instagram, got a DM the other day that he said, "Why do you have the worst takes on this Twitter app?" or something like that. It happens. It's a lot more. It's a much bigger problem than people will put on. Just the innate ability of someone to literally go to such lengths to try and tear someone down is horrifying to me. And I think something needs to happen on Twitter. I think something needs to happen on Instagram where they can ban people like this from ever having an account. I don't know how. I'm not going to be the one that's able to put those regulations on and say that, but this is legitimately a massive problem. Like, you do not have that is not covered in your right of free speech in the United States Constitution. I'm taking a mass comm law class right now. That is a private entity. Twitter, if they want to, they can completely shut you down and just completely eradicate you from ever using their platform. And I think they need to do it more. That is a private entity. Twitter is its own business. They're making money. They have the right to censor what people see and what people can say, and they need to exercise that right and do it more. It is not inside your First Amendment rights to say something like that to someone else on Twitter. Because I know if you were to see EJ Lidell in person, those people that send him those things would never say that to his face, ever, because they have this opportunity to hide behind a keyboard and say whatever they want and feel all big and strong, when really they have no courage at all to say something like that to his face. And there's no reason to say that to that man. It is a sport. It is a game. This is a player who's dedicated multiple years of his life to play for your university. And to call yourself a fan and act like that is just completely dumbfounding. And there's a lot of other examples of this. This is one that just happened recently and really struck a nerve for me. Just the way that EJ kind of acted after this. Clearly, it just, you don't understand sort of the emotional toll that can take on someone to be talked to like that. A lot of people have underlying mental health issues that you have no idea about. you just like you can't say things like this. It's just unacceptable to me, and it is a real big problem in not only the world of sports, just life in general. And it's so unfortunate to me when I see it boil over into sport and see young athletes who aren't even they're not making money to play at your university. That not that that's any better. Like you can't. I wouldn't be happy if you said it to a professional athlete. Excuse me, but yeah, man, it's really hard. It's really hard to compartmentalize how someone could possibly ever feel like this could ever be okay, and it sucks. And I think that this needs to have this is one of the areas that I want to get to today that needs a lot more representation in daily life, is just being kinder to people, being a better individual, building people up instead of tearing people down. um, EJ Liddell gave his heart to Ohio State. They had a tremendous season. They got beat. Oral Roberts was the better team that day. It happens. It's March Madness. It's madness for a reason. Um, and so yeah, I think I'm going to start to try and do some different things on these weekly episodes to showcase the positivity and that these methods can provide of building people up, and encouraging people rather than instead tearing people down, because there are good people out there. There are the ones that will go out of their way to send you a positive note. There are the ones that will go out of their way to to um, do the right thing, and I want to highlight that, because there's so much put on people doing the wrong thing that I feel like it almost has the reverse effect, where it gets so much attention. It gets so much prowess in the media of, oh, when people do the wrong thing, when they say the wrong thing, um, that it almost encourages more people to do it because they're getting attention. They're getting that spotlight. And so I'm going to try and continue to showcase some examples of people building one another up, positive notes, and things like that. Um, but yeah, hate speech and that's exactly what that is. You can call that anything that you want. When you're calling someone a racial slur, telling them that you hope that they literally die, saying that I will pull up on you, like it's not a laughing matter at all. It's horrifying. It truly is horrifying, and it's something that we as a society need to be better at, much better at. And I will continue to harp that um, until the day I die. So hopefully that's a welcomed addition to this little weekly segment. Is a positive note from the world of sports in terms of building one another up. So that's what I'm going to try and incorporate from here on out. So the second really ugly thing that I want to get to is a very heavy aspect as well, and it is the female representation in the world of sports. Over the first few days of the March Madness coverage, one of the stories that dominated the sports world was the weight room situation for the women's NCAA tournament, rather than in comparison to what the men were given. And when asked about it, the NCAA said that came up with a bunch of excuses. They didn't really address the problem. They said it was a space issue, and then there was multiple videos put out from some of the women participants in that tournament of showing how much just how much space that there was to put in the resources that they would need to have an adequate weight setup, and not even adequate, but just like literally one rack of a couple dumbbells and some yoga mats was all that they were given. Not to mention the swag bag differences that the men got in comparison to the women, and also not to mention some of the food that they've been serving, the hotels and situations like that. And it was eye-opening. It was very eye-opening. And honestly, I'm a little disappointed that it was so eye-opening, because this is a tremendous problem in our society, and women in sports do not get the credit that they deserve. And it's just an absolute true statement. I know a lot, and this goes for just playing sports. This goes for covering sports. This goes for the media and all of those things. I've talked to a couple different friends now, who I've gotten to know through my time of working with student media here at the University of Utah or elsewhere. It's a big problem. I know a lot of female colleagues that are very disappointed in what's happening, and um, it's a really big thing. And I know that there's a lot of female colleagues that do not get the same representation that the males do. And I saw one of the things on my Twitter timeline the other day was that there was the first ever all female um, like sports desk thing where they had a show, and it was all the anchors, all the analysts and things like that were all females. And how is that now just the first time that there's ever been an all female broadcast team? That just completely blows my mind. And and yeah, the NCAA did kind of fix the problem a little bit when they upped the situation of their weight room. But when the first thing that comes out of the organization as a whole is just flat out excuses, there's a big problem. Um, and to eradicate those mistakes, there's a couple companies. Dick's Sporting Goods comes to mind. They put out a tweet that had a whole bunch of weight equipment on a truck saying, "Hey, shout out whatever you need. We're ready to provide." Great effort there. Great strides. Um, it's just really tough. And so I want to continue to have this be an ongoing conversation. I will continue to push for equality between genders in all of sports, whether that's pay, whether that's position wise. I can't necessarily help that I'm a white male going into um, a field that is dominated by white males. To be a sports broadcaster, that is my dream. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. But I can continue to push for equality, and I will do that. And so, for females out there, if you looking to become a broadcaster, I'm not necessarily there yet. I'm not a great contact, but I will always be someone who pushes for that level of equality between males and females in terms of sports and participation and things like that. And so hopefully I can start to incorporate that as well. I want to bring on some of my colleagues to help me unpack some of those situations. So look for those in the next few episodes upcoming. And yeah, so this is just me kind of sharing my thoughts of where these things are two things that really struck me hard these past few weeks of as I continue to delve deeper into becoming a part of the media and the sports media, and carry myself that way, because it is a big burden. It is a burden that I do not take lightly, and I will always do everything that I can to push for the equality of women in that workplace. They belong in sports. Most of the women that I talk to about sports know more than I do, and well, maybe not more, maybe not more than I do, but know just as much and are just as good at their job that I do, and chances are they won't get that same chance that I might further on down the road. So um, it's really hard, and hopefully this is a wake up call for a couple people. Hopefully this is a wake up call for people across the country who are who need to hear the message of building one another up rather than tearing one another down. Um, as a society, it is just absolutely toxic in terms of where some of the things are going towards. And I know this is a sports podcast. We talk college sports, but both of these occurrences happen in sports, and all of this is very relevant to the day-to-day activities of many people in sports. And I assure you that there's people all over the country. There's professionals all over the country who just have their DMs flooded of hate, and it's just really scary. And it's really sad, um, and also the whole women's issue of the weight room and the equality of women in the world of sports. The mantra needs to change, and so I will be here to continuously push for that. And so just wanted to come on, keep it a little bit more brief. I will be back in more of a normal format next week to give you more of a wrap up of what's happening in the world of sports. There's been a couple big NFL offseason signings that I want to get to. we have the Masters coming up for the PGA Tour, which is one of the biggest majors of the year. It's always held at Augusta National, a really good time. I love watching that one play out. So that's up ahead. The Dell match play is this weekend. I believe the finals are going on right now between Scotty Scheffler and Billy Horschel. Hopefully that is dramatic down to the end. It's fantastic event there as a World Golf Championship in Houston. And then one of the other things I want to talk about is Africa just got their third UFC champion. The UFC is the Ultimate Fighting competition, and Francis Ngannou just won the heavyweight championship world title last night. So that was really fun to watch. He seems to be an amazing human being, an amazing story, and just an absolute freak of nature in terms of his ability to put people away. And the UFC is not everyone's cup of tea, and I know that very much so, and that is okay. If you don't like it, you don't like it, and I'm not here to push that on anyone, but it was a very entertaining night, and history was made with the first time that Africa has ever had 3 UFC champions. Israel Adesanya is the other one, and Kamaru Usman was the first. So good stuff there. Some history was made last night, and yeah, I think that's going to do it for me on this episode. Just wanted to keep it short, keep it brief, get you out some content. And if you have any questions about anything that I said, if you want, I'm not going to put in any of the tweets that EJ Lidell got. I'm not going to do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that. If you haven't seen the weight room video by now, go check it out. I highly encourage you to do so. It was very eye-opening and disturbing. And yeah, so hopefully I didn't scare some of you away. If I did, then I'm not necessarily sure I want you watching my podcast anyway. But anyway, yes, hopefully y'all enjoyed it. Stay safe out there, everyone. We're almost through the neck of the woods. Vaccines are more available here in Utah every day. Fun stuff. And hopefully we get to see some live sports soon. I've been lucky enough to be able to be in attendance in some of these Utah sporting events, but and Utah is now allowing fans at their events in limited capacity. So fun things ahead. It's becoming a little bit warmer. Spring's on its way. So enjoy, everyone. Enjoy the last few games of the Sweet 16. We will be with you early this week, surely, to talk of the first few games of the Elite Eight and what lies ahead for some of these teams as they push for a national championship in basketball. All right, everyone. Take care. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Let me know, and I'll be happy to share some light more about what I think. So take care, everyone. Stay safe, and I will catch you all next week.